It's the Boxing Day show. Get ready to rumble!
Hello, everybody. In this corner, we've got the federal government, and in this corner, we've got the CSP, and they're going to knock it out and see who wins. Another year has passed on the THC Show. Welcome. I'm your host, Neil Magnuson. This is the show where we talk about truth, hope, and change, and what all that has to do with our struggle, our boxing match, our fight with a federal government that's so corrupt that they're willing to let people die so they can make political and financial points off it. It's been terrible. But here we are, another year has gone by. On the show today, we'll have 8 out of 10 Glenn join us for the 420 session and beyond. We'll have a visit with the CSP Healing Wave RV, of course, and a little bit of a talk of what's going on out of town. So, we just had a great Christmas giveaway event here over the last couple of days. Joe Pepper is so thankful for her amazing effort, and it wasn't even a burden. She said she loved it. She cooked 2 days in a row, cooked the turkey for Christmas Eve that we handed out a bunch of plates to people, and another fantastic spread of food that was out for yesterday as well, for Christmas Day. A lot of people got a lot of food. Of course, at Christmas time, it's not really the best time to feed people around here because they all got plates of food mostly, although we found people that hadn't been fed. But there's a lot of people that feed people on Christmas Day here. That's one day when people don't starve. Unfortunately, well, and in this neighborhood, there is a fair amount of food giveaways. But it'd be nice if people just randomly did what they do on Christmas Day throughout the year as well. There was a group set up right on the corner, a couple of tents and a huge truckload full of silver trays full of all kinds of turkey dinner and what have you, and they were feeding all these people. And I went over there and I said, well, who are you people? And they said, well, we're just a family. And I said, what do you mean you're just a family? You're not a church or a society or a group or anything? And they said, no, we're just a family. We just decided we'd come down here and feed some people on Christmas. So that was beautiful and wonderful, and that's great. Lots of that went on yesterday. So I get a lot of people asking me, how do you stay so optimistic? How is it that you're happy most of the time in the face of the obstacles that we're facing here, in the face of lots of other things that happen in my life that, is not unlike things that happen in other people's life, but I've been very fortunate to have, spent a lifetime of trying to gather up different strategies for how to deal with stuff. And so I put together a little thing here, and I think that I'm going to give it to all of you. Take it for what it is. If it helps you, that's great. If not, whatever. But it's what works for me. It's what has been working for me for a long time. Many of these different things, the ways that I've come to look at things because they work. So this is my best advice. This is the truths and the beliefs that are the foundation of optimism and happiness, at least for me. You can be however you want to be. You are unique. Nobody else is quite like you. Different people do things differently. That's what makes them different. Some of the ways that some people deal with things work well. And some of the ways that some people deal with things don't work so well. If the way you're dealing with some things is not working well for you, which means you're basically not happy, right? I mean, the goal is to be happy. That's what we want. That's what everybody wants, is to be happy. But they can't be happy because of this, or they can't be happy because of that, or whatever. Well, it's not what happens to you, it's how you deal with things. And if the way you're dealing with things isn't making you happy, then the good news is that you can change the way that you deal with things. You either deal with things by deciding in the moment what it is and how you want to feel, what it is you're going to do and how you're going to feel about things. Or you decided that a long time ago, and these are just the habitual patterns of your personality that are there. When this type of thing happens, this is the type of reaction that you provided. Or, and actually in a lot more cases than people understand, much of our decisions about how we react and deal with things were decided upon by our ancestors millennia ago and have been passed down through generations. People that went through wars and famines and many hardships developed all kinds of different ways to deal with those sorts of things. And a lot of that gets translated down into how we deal with things, just by instinct, by our guts, by whatever. All that is the way our ancestors decided things during powerful moments that get passed down genetically. There's only two types of things in life. Those things you can change and those things you can't change. Of the things you can change, there's only two types. Those that are worth the effort and those that wouldn't be worth the effort. So you can decide pretty quickly as things come at you, is this something that I can change? Or is this something that I can't change and is or isn't worth the effort? Feel lucky and blessed, because we are. It could almost always be worse. Learn to practice, by practicing, to look at things on the brightest side that you can. Most things in life have more than one side to them. Life is a lot like sailing. Try not to overcorrect. It's important to maintain a proper balance in all of the different aspects of life. Find the joy as best you can, moment by moment, in all things, whatever is going on. Embrace humor. Embrace music. Embrace curiosity. What do you love? Seek it out. What do you hate? Ignore it. Don't allow it to have any of your precious time, because that's all we have in life, is this moment right here and how we feel. No guarantee of other moments. And how do you want to spend that moment? The majority of people want to spend it being happy. You can spend it being happy almost no matter what's happening. The thing to fear most is, of course, unreasonable fear itself. A healthy fear will protect you to some degree, but unhealthy fears limit you and take away opportunities and provide nasty feelings in places where they don't need to be. Beware of fear. Just stay focused on positive things. Don't worry about failures. Failures are just lessons. The more you fail means the more you tried. And the more you fail, the more you learn. Failures are simply lessons that cost you whatever the cost was. If you lose a bunch of money, somebody rips you off, you get swindled into a deal of some sort, you failed to recognize the con and the danger. But that's a lesson that'll serve you well. And the cost of that lesson is whatever it was, and it could save you. It could be very important. Some of these lessons are so important because it costs this amount here. But if you didn't have that happen and you didn't learn that lesson, it could have cost you this much down the road. All obstacles and problems are simply opportunities. It's a way to figure out something new, to learn something new, to make something better. They're all positives if you look at them that way. And number 10 on my list, they were numbered but I didn't tell you the numbers. Have as much fun as you can. Life is too serious to take too serious, for sure. Live in love, not fear. Spread joy to others to experience joy for yourself. So that's my gift to you today, is the knowledge that I've managed to accumulate that works for me. I hope it can work for you. I hope there's some gems in there. Maybe there's some things you can think about that maybe you can change a little bit, and maybe you can be happier down the road. And I do hope that everybody has a happier 2024 and a happier future as we move forward. That all of these things that happen to us should make us stronger and make us smarter, make us wiser, and make us happier. Cannabis Substitution Program has been trying to bring a little joy into the lives of people for almost 7 years. We've been responding to this public health emergency. You know, there's over 38,000 deaths attributed to the overdose crisis in the last 8 years. All of those deaths affect extended families and friends, society in general. It hurts us all. But what they don't talk about much is the hundreds of thousands of overdoses that didn't result in death. And what happens as a result of all of that? There's a lack of oxygen to the brain in many cases, and the resulting brain damage. There's something called opioid myelitis, which is a condition from contaminated street drugs that people get involved with that eats away their bones and causes their bones to be brittle. When you see these people walking around the downtown east side stooped over, in many cases that's what's going on. It's not just that they've spent hours and hours hunched over searching for a tiny little bit of crack that somebody might have dropped in a sidewalk crack or something like that. It's that their spines have failed them. Another problem with the drug misuse crisis, the overdose crisis, the tainted drug supply, all of those things that we're dealing with here with the Cannabis Substitution Program. We're trying to bring a little joy into people's life, and we're trying to save their lives. And we've had amazing success doing that. It's very difficult to calculate how many people have been helped by what we've been doing here. For one thing, what we're doing here has spread. Just over 4 years now in Halifax, they've been doing similar things. Surrey's just passed their 1-year anniversary. Newton is into their last half of their first year. Langley has now started. We're sending care packs and advice to Ottawa for a CSP that's starting up there. Here in Vancouver, we've got 270 members that we made members of people that would line up to get our care packs for the first 3.5 years. They'd get 420 milligrams for free every 4 days. We have literally hundreds of other people that aren't part of the program, that aren't a member, that can come and get free edibles and free joints, or a free edible or a free joint every day, and use that the same way as the other people are using it to get off of those hard drugs or to mitigate the use. Every dose of cannabis that is put out by the CSPs is one less dose of the tainted drug supply that could kill somebody. It's very difficult to calculate how many people we've helped. I spoke on an earlier show about the person that is helping us with some of our supplies, who came to me and said one of our family members was lost down in the downtown east side. We tried to rescue them several times, but it never lasted very long, and they were back down risking death every time. The family was beside itself. This last time, the person has come home, and they're crediting the Cannabis Substitution Program with saving their life. It's a mantra that we hear over and over and over again. We don't know how many people we help. That family of the person we're talking about 12 people who were at wit's end about what to do about their loved one and are now elated because their loved one has managed to kick the habit. We don't know how many people have kicked the habit because of our efforts here. We know we have 270 members that'll all testify that cannabis has got them off the hard drugs. We know that there's many other people that come and tell us at the RV that because we've provided easy, no-cost or low-cost access to these things for them, that they've managed to get off these drugs. We have no idea how many people have been using our services and have gotten off of the drugs, and we don't know about it. It's a very large number of people that we have helped here. It's in the tens of thousands of people, without any doubt, that have been helped profoundly by what we're doing here. As far as I know, other than people eating too much cannabis on 1 or 2 occasions, most people don't do it twice. But other than that, no one has been harmed by what we've been doing. We've provided 10,000 to 12,000 milligrams of cannabis edibles for almost 7 years. 300 times we were at Vandu, handing out a few hundred care packs to the couple hundred people that would line up to get them, twice a week. Here we're 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, with our care packs for the members, and with our edible or free joint for the people that aren't members. I'm sure there's tens of thousands of people that we've helped. I know there's nobody that's been hurt in any profound way. We've never had any complaints about us in that way. What we're doing is against the criminal law in Canada. What we're doing was breaking the law to begin with, even though we tried hard to get the permission to do that, even before we started. Presenting it to the City Council in Vancouver and getting unanimous approval a couple of years later, by the way. We didn't get it the first time around. But still, we're in this boxing match with the federal government, who doesn't want to allow high-dose edibles in the marketplace because they don't want to have to admit that cannabis is real serious medicine. It is the safe supply for people. 419. You got a minute? I got a minute. Roll them if you got them. Fill your pipe. Fill your dab rig. We're about to celebrate the sacred herb. So, it is shockingly immoral that in this country that we think that we're free with a democratically elected government, that government can't see fit to permit our life-saving efforts, after all of this demonstrating of how well it works, with all these people who will testify to how well it works. In fact, we're going to see the federal government in court coming up in March. And they're going to spend an enormous amount of money, just like they've spent an enormous amount of money on previous cases. On the Allard case, on the Warnocky, Seaman, and Martin case, now on our case, on the case against Ted Smith, and on it goes. This immoral federal government on behalf of the English crown that sees fit to waste millions and millions and millions of our precious dollars to try to protect the greedy corporate elite and their own reputations in not allowing cannabis to be involved. In any case, it's 420. And that means, as always, Sir Glenn Wells is here.
And you forgot Doug and Michelle's $110,000 fine. They are being, right now, charged $1,000 a month interest as they're fighting it.
Immoral like crazy. Yeah. I mean, you don't get these types of penalties on the worst types of murderers and rapists in Canada at all. This is the law in Canada being levied against people that would dare try to violate the laws against providing cannabis to sick people.
Yeah.
It is so immoral. Doug and Michelle have done a fantastic job. I'm sure they've got just a huge list of people that will thank them profusely for the help that they've gotten over the years.
Too.
And Ted as well, us, and and certainly Pat Warnocky, what Jerry Martin was able to do in Whitewood, Saskatchewan, may he rest in peace.
Yep.
And
so many others.
Mr. Seaman, Jason Seaman as well, and so many others. Oh man, it's been terrible. It's been terrible.
I read this thing. It's sad that we are increasingly realize that we did not elect the government to serve us. We are ruled by people who are mad with power.
Yeah.
Right?
And we're not given a choice.
No.
You can get this puppet over here, or this puppet over here, or this one over here.
Yeah.
But they're all just puppets. They're all just
and
puppets.
Be a different puppet until we get mad at that puppet, and then the other puppet comes back.
The political system in Canada, when it comes to actually helping the people that need help, is severely broken.
Yeah.
And we're going to see if we can't straighten it out a little bit in court. I want to do a little bit of a year in review.
Okay. Ding. Round one.
Glenn was going to bring some boxing gloves
We
here
were.
today.
Yeah, we were.
I offered to go bare knuckles.
Yeah, I got knuckles for you.
I used to box.
He used to box it.
I'd box out that flipping mayor of Vancouver, that's for sure.
He used to box in the shipping
man.
yard.
I'd box out Justin Trudeau, that's for sure. Come on, Justin. Come on, take on an old guy.
Yeah, really.
I'm going to see you and your people in court.
Did you
Kick your ass.
Did you get to see him that I told you that day that he was going to be down there?
No, I didn't
All
know.
right. No.
He was gone.
Was he already?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, this year in review, how has it gone for the CSP? Well, the previous year, myself and two of my colleagues were charged with selling cannabis without a license. The beginning of this past year saw my other two co-accused plead guilty because they were basically told that that would be the best deal they could get and that they'd be given a complete discharge and the rest of it. And I guess they have been, but they also had to do some community service. It started out that the Crown wanted them to do a bunch of community service and write letters of apology for what they had done. Can you imagine what that letter would be like? We're really sorry that we had to break the corrupt law because the federal government is just so mired in corruption.
We're really sorry we had to break the law to save people's lives.
We're really sorry that there's an overdose crisis going on that we had to respond to as ethical human beings that was caused by federal government policies. You know, we could have written letters like that.
Yeah.
But they protested and the conditions were changed. And all they had to do was a bunch of community service, 40 hours, with the Aboriginal Community Policing Station, which is high on people getting cannabis easily. The chief of that policing situation is one of the board members of our Serious Hope Society. So they got to wander around the city smoking weed and helping people, which they do anyway.
Yes.
Crazy. There was a number of weed events that happened in the past year. Unlike other years, we had Can of Love for Valentine's Day, which turned out to be all right.
Thank you to the Weed Fairy for that one.
A little bit cold. Yeah, the Weed Fairy put that on. I helped with that.
Yep.
Not as much as she did, I'm sure, but maybe during...
you were doing the MCing. I've got video of it.
During the day itself, but you know, the actual putting it all together.
And that's
was
the day that the
basically
sun worked out for us, because we had the sunny side, and the other side was all
because
shady
we got
and cold.
kicked out of the other side.
Yeah.
And then it turned out that so that's how that one worked. Then we had St. Fatty's Day in Thornton Park, and that was a successful little event. We had no problems with that.
So you know what's happening with Thornton Park, right?
No, what's happening?
Across the street, that's the new hospital. That's that's the new St. Joseph's Hospital.
Of course.
It's going to be there, yeah.
Nothing to do with Thornton Park.
Well, that's going to kind of change things, I would think, because there's going to be a lot of medical staff and patients hanging out in the park if we've got a hospital right across the street now, right? It could change the whole area, like, because there'll be right? There'll be families visiting with their sick ones and stuff there in that park, right? So I think it's going to change the park a little bit.
It's being built fairly fast. It's not being built China fast.
No, I know.
But it's being built fairly fast.
He was just there last week or something, checking it out, so... All right.
So St. Fatty's Day was good, and another event that we hadn't had before that maybe we'll repeat again. It's hard to say what's going to go on with all the stuff coming up because, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Because the next one up was 420.
Yep.
420 was behind the scenes a lot of chaos, a lot of infighting, a lot of things going on there. How we were going to do this, who was going to work with who. And all the rest of it. I ended up working with a group that brought Mercules here.
It was great.
And we had a fantastic 420 in the absolute pouring rain. Strange that you could say that those two things went together.
It worked out.
But despite the rain, maybe even a little bit because of the rain, 420 was quite the success. A huge crowd of people standing out in the pouring rain, being entertained by musicians, getting soaked with the wind being driven right onto the stage. Mercules put on a hell of a show. We had Afro Man there. Dana Larson just killed it with his speech. And we had a whole bunch of vendors, and all sorts of cannabis. Mind you, tents were blown away. Everything and everybody was soaked.
Yeah.
By the time I was wrapping things up well after midnight at the park there, I could not have been more soaked if I'd have jumped in a swimming pool.
Wow, eh? Or your tub here.
But I had a big grin on my face.
You did.
We had pulled it off. It was a great event. Next up, well, there was no GMM in Vancouver. Fighting forces and discombobulation, and it just didn't happen. I know there was GMMs happening in other places across Canada and other places. I'm very happy for that, and I hope we can bring that back.
What's GMM?
The global marijuana market.
Oh yeah, that's okay.
Which has always been very huge in
We
Toronto.
won't know that, right? So we have to tell them, right? So, yeah.
They could Google it.
They can go. Sure, they'll probably come with gluto modified or something else.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Just put GMM in pot or something.
Yeah, kind of a.
So maybe next year we can get it going on here. I think they had a pretty good one in Toronto this past year. And Toronto has always been the place for the GMMs.
Yeah.
Vancouver's always been the place for 420s.
Well, 6 million people there, you know, it's going to be a lot of people, right? There's 6 million in this province.
Yeah, and I was looking at, we shouldn't probably go there, but just the sale of cannabis through the legal system across Canada, and which provinces are doing the best.
Ontario.
There's been a slight increase, about a 1.2% increase in sales across the board in Canada. Ontario does about $176 million in sales in a year. Toronto alone does $70 million.
Wow. $70
the entire amount just for the past 10 months is over $1 billion.
Wow.
$1 billion
of cannabis sales.
Of cannabis sales.
You really?
I mean that sounds like it's great, but to me it's like just an example of their overcharging. The prices are artificially high.
It's like the grocery guys.
Yeah,
making billions because they're overcharging for food, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, kind of like
Except
that.
I think it's much more dramatic in the cannabis world.
Yeah.
The grocery guys are still under $10 a pound for all of their plant matter for the most part. Cannabis remains in the thousands of dollars per pound if you're buying it through the government stores. And there's some justification for paying perhaps hundreds of dollars for pounds of cannabis if it's grown by connoisseurs under the expensive conditions that they grow under. There's
Thank you.
People can have expensive cannabis, and expensive cannabis can be grown, and lots of people want that stuff, and that's fine. It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, fantastically grown cannabis, I mean, there's nothing like it. Except for the other cannabis that's not grown, so fantastically, so expensively, that can still be pretty darn good.
Yep.
I mean, Mother Nature did a good job of creating flower buds. And when cannabis is grown under controlled conditions and sometimes just out in nature, you get some nice looking buds, you get some really good medicine, you get some high THC.
Outdoor stuff.
So, because the governments are so corrupt in Canada, and they developed this scheme to protect their interests, they're the ones who are making a ton of this cash that's being generated through the sale of cannabis. Their interests are protected. They take it off the top. The other protected group are the CEOs of these publicly traded companies that benefit from all the shareholders spending their money into these companies, and they get to live the life of grandeur and luxury.
Yep. Limousines,
while the stock prices go down, 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 and then the businesses end up going bankrupt or they get bought up by somebody else. And the guys at the top do just fine. It's always the shareholders and the employees and the rest of it that doesn't do well. So this scheme that the government came up with of legalization is by the rich, for the few elite, and absolutely kicking under the bus all the people that really need it, that need good quality cannabis on a daily basis, need lots of it. They can't afford it, and it's not available to them. And in fact, the worst thing about legalization for medical people is the lack of high-dose edibles available, because that's what really works for a lot of people. So that's our fight. That's what we're here to box the federal government about, is high-dose edibles or proper dose edibles being readily and easily available with low barriers. and with the price of cannabis able to come down, because there should be low barriers to people getting into the marketplace with the cannabis that they've grown. No penalties for pot, no penalties for growing nature's greatest plant and trying to make it available to people. If the marketplace doesn't deem the cannabis that's being brought there to be satisfactory, they won't buy it. And the marketplace will determine what does and doesn't sell here. And for those people that need good quality, inexpensive, medical grade cannabis, the marketplace would provide for that if it was allowed to do it. So that is our fight with that. And next up was Cannabis Day. Going from a fantastic 420 in the pouring rain, after 25 years of successful protests being held, not just 420, but 420 was the big one. That was the flagship, the mothership of all the protests that we put on. But Cannabis Day wasn't very far behind that. Some amazing Cannabis Days over the years. Huge crowd at the Art Gallery in 2014. Big crowd 2019. So here we have post-pandemic Cannabis Day during the reign of a new tyrant, mayor.
A beer drinking mayor. A
beer guzzling, corrupt, Chinese contaminated mayor. And I have a lot of good respect for Chinese people.
Yeah.
I don't like their government. I know some Chinese people rather personally over the last few years.
Yep.
They don't like their government either. We've got a little slice of the Chinese government running Vancouver. And it's disgusting. The lack of compassion for the people that need it the most in our society by this administration is criminal. They really need to be thrown in jail for how they've handled poor, suffering people, suffering numerous barriers in trying to survive in this world, having suffered numerous traumas, starting in many cases, in most cases in childhood, leading up to where they are now in the streets of Vancouver, where they're traumatized daily by police and other authorities who have zero compassion, for the most part, for these poor, desperate, mostly abused children of our society. Yesterday, on Christmas Day, there was a bit of a Christmas miracle that happened here besides the Vancouver Canucks. There was a police van that pulled over in the lane to check on somebody who looked like they may not be breathing.
Yeah.
We don't ever see that.
Oh, really, eh?
You can call the police over to somebody if you go and check on them and they're not responsive and you see a policeman coming by, or you can call them and they'll come. They don't have Narcan kits with them. It's not within their budget, even though the Narcan kits are free. What does that tell you? We have some concern about the lack of concern by the police for the poor people who are abused, robbed, raped, and beaten on a regular basis in this neighborhood, especially the women, but not only the women.
And by the cops not having Narcan with them, that puts it onto the fire department or ambulance people to have to attend.
Or the people in the community that have them.
Yes.
We all carry them.
Yeah, like if the police had them on the first initial thing, maybe we wouldn't have to call the fire department. Maybe we wouldn't have to call an ambulance. Because the police officer was able to attend.
Because they're the ones who drive by first most of the time.
Exactly, yeah.
The ambulances come on a call.
Yeah.
The firemen come on a call. So do the police.
But
the police are in the neighborhood. The police station is 1 block up the street. They are driving by all the time. It is easy, most of the time, when I see someone unresponsive, to look up, and within a few minutes, maybe less, there's a police car driving by.
Yeah.
I was on Davie Street the other day at a supplement store there, and as I'm walking up the street, I see in the little alcove of a closed-up storefront a steel pipe with some sort of a heavy thing attached to the bottom of it.
Hit people with.
I thought, man, that's a weapon if there ever was one.
Yeah.
And we have some crazy people around Christmas time and after the pandemic, there's a lot of people that are acting out violently. I thought that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So I looked up to see if there was a cop anywhere. And as I'm going like that, 2 bike cops come driving. I said, I was just looking to see if there was an officer somewhere around. That looks really dangerous to me.
Yeah.
They just went like that and kept on going like as if
Oh, wow, really?
it was that. Now, I don't really expect them to take it away on their bicycles.
Yeah.
But they could have given me a little more acknowledgement. They could have, suggested that I take it away, which I probably should have.
Could have. Yeah.
But in any case, that happened. And so,
did you take it away?
No. I should have.
You should have. Yes.
I probably would have got arrested.
If you're telling the police officer, why don't you just take it away?
My car was a ways away, and I just didn't do that. It's hindsight. Hindsight is 2020. I don't know why. I was a bit flabbergasted that they didn't care at all.
Yeah.
And got some real flashes.
I know, that's great. That's on the screen.
Yeah, it might have just been a bus.
We're electrifying people.
I think it's a bus.
Yeah, it's a bus, yeah. The trolley bus.
So anyway, this officer was out of his van, compassionately reviving this person and seeing if he was okay. So I went over there and, I thanked him for that, and I offered him a plate of food, but he wouldn't take it.
No. And, I actually think that, our Premier Edie is a little bit more compassionate than our mayor.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because one, he just made that announcement that he's going to try to open up all these shelters in the afternoons now instead of just the morning or the evenings, right? So people can have a place to go when it's cold and when it's hot outside.
There's shelters, but they're not easy to get into.
And he's going to try to get rid of the SROs, too. He said those are just traps. He said they're fire traps.
They're terrible.
And stuff. Right, so we've got to make something better.
Bug infested.
But, if the mayor was really on board with that, he would have said that first instead of the premier having to say something, right?
So, the mayor doesn't care about the poor people.
No,
it appears he really cares.
Tents, right?
When you look at what he's done in Vancouver here, what he really seems to care about a lot is Chinatown.
Yeah, he does.
Which seems to be an unfair bias, although maybe if you got your own town, if you got French town or African town, maybe you vote somebody in to look after your interests, and Bob's your uncle. So I guess that's what's going on, is the large amount of Chinese people here in Vancouver managed to vote in one of their own, and now they're getting their needs met at the exclusion of many of the non-Chinese people that are being seriously abused by the mayor deciding to clean up Chinatown.
Yeah.
It's terrible. I hope you don't see me as racist for saying these things.
Their tents on the parks in the wintertime where they can just be staying warm instead of having to tear it down every morning.
There are so much bigger concerns in this city.
There's a park ranger who just quit her job because she wasn't being a park ranger. She was being a tear-down tent person 80% of the time, she said.
Over 30% of the park rangers have quit in the last year.
Because of that, right?
They are really suffering for people that will do the job.
Yeah.
And I can imagine
it's traumatic to them to see that they have to tear down this person's home.
Because,
nowhere else to go.
The timeline that we're on right now is Cannabis Day.
Yeah.
And here we have a mayor who, despite a 25-year stellar record of a citizens' initiative of protesting what are very bad laws and need to be protested with all kinds of justification to do that, in a free country where we're supposed to have free speech, the freedom to assembly, and all the rest of that stuff. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. We don't. Because the mayor decided the day before Cannabis Day that he was going to shut her down. And he spent all kinds of money to fence off the entire park at Thornton Park.
And keep the geese
just
out.
to keep us and the geese out.
The community.
They chased the geese out when they put the fence up.
Yeah.
Geese that now don't understand that it's just a corrupt, ignorant mayor who doesn't understand the history of Vancouver or the necessity for proper protest still in this world. The whole opioid crisis is what we're protesting at our pot events these days, and yet we're not allowed to protest that in his mind. He's the mayor. He's got the public purse. He's going to spend whatever it takes to stop it. So he put the fence up right around the entire park. He brought in about 60 police officers getting double, triple time on a civic or a federal holiday to make sure that there was no breaches of the fence.
Yeah.
That there was, nothing going on there. There was no sale of cannabis going on there.
Irritating sound too. Remember?
Yeah, they had that sound to keep people
we
away.
Don't know. It was a sound. They were trying to do that on purpose.
Oh, I know.
They're saying that too many people were hanging around there all the time, so they were trying to do stuff to keep people away from there.
So that's what he did for Cannabis Day. I can't be more disgusted by the actions of a public servant than this mayor in his term. By far the worst mayor in Vancouver's history to date. And we have had some bad ones in the past, and we have had some fairly progressive mayors as well. But all of the good work done by the activists to facilitate the mind change of these mayors over the years, and all the good work of these progressive mayors once they had their minds changed properly, has all been pushed down the toilet. And we are a scattered, dispersed group at this point, wondering what to do and how to do things in the face of much stronger oppression than we've ever faced before from a corrupt mayor. So we did manage to have BC Bud Day.
Yep.
There was a police presence that tried to intimidate, but we didn't allow for that. We did a little bit of the tongue fu that I've been practicing for a long time here at these events, and other people have taken up the torch with. And we actually had the one officer who was there to see what was going on tell me personally that he was there on Cannabis Day. Now, for those who don't know, they fenced off the park on Cannabis Day. They brought in all of those police. We did not breach the fence other than to let the geese back in that were disrupting traffic, repeatedly trying to get back to their park. We didn't breach the fence. What we did do was we set up our stage where we could, at the SkyTrain station at the corner of the park. We had vendors set up along that perimeter there, and they had cops standing there, intimidating them, threatening them, handing out threatening letters to them while we protested loudly on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
the day
that day they almost caused a riot.
Yep.
They injured one of our best people, landlord, who's still now suing the police, and him and his lawyer.
Video of that day.
He's got video. If you have any video of landlord being pushed to the ground by this aggressive, evil cop, we'd love to have it. But he has enough. His lawyer has enough.
Well, he has enough. Because he asked me if I knew where I'd get some. So.
But, if it wasn't for the fact that pot people, cannabis people, are peace-loving, love-loving individuals, there would have been one major riot there, like there would have been at one of our global marijuana marches back in the day when the authorities arrested our DJ and intervened. That was close to a riot. In fact, we put 3 of the officers that day under citizen's arrest here in Vancouver for inciting a riot.
Yeah.
And so this is back to archaic practices of seeing us as the enemy, whereas we had built up all this goodwill and proven ourselves to be good citizens, holding good, safe events where we leave a place cleaner than we find it. We're so much better than the fireworks or the other events, the indie races where people get drunk and disorderly, and the hockey game riot and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
There was no reason or justification for trying to shut us down like that. This mayor needed to follow in the footsteps of the previous mayors and support what we're doing here in our move that has already resulted in legalization, although it's not the legalization we've been fighting for, but it was legalization that was done and presented to us to satisfy us, to say, there you go, your protests have been successful. Well, no, they weren't really. Although, we are where we are, and it is better for the average person who's got some weed on them because they're not going to get arrested anymore, and the arrests for personal possession are way down. But not the arrests for people that are violating the cartel's rules about growing and selling. In fact, the penalties are way up for what they used to be. The amount of money being spent on enforcement is way up from what it used to be. And that drug war still rages on.
Which is sad.
So sad. We have so much need to continue to protest, and now we have a city hall that doesn't support us in trying to do that. So we're going to see what we can do coming up here. The next event, barring a Can of Love or a St. Fatty's Day, which could be anywhere, and the city will have a hard time closing those down because we're probably not going to give a lot of heads up to the city as to where we're doing these things, and we'll see what action they want to take against us that we can then use against them. But of course, the big one coming up is 420, and it is really up in the air. I think there's a few different people trying to do some things for 420, and we're going to see how all of that works. Stay tuned to Pot TV and this show to find out when we get much closer to the event where we might decide to do that.
We'll keep you posted.
We'll keep you posted. And if you go to the Cannabis Culture 420 website, you'll see that there's a to be announced page there going on, and when the time is right, we'll announce what we're going to do. Much of it has yet to be decided, but that's where we're at. Next up was BC Bud Day, and maybe the protestations that we put up because of Cannabis Day helped us a little bit. But as I said, there was some enforcement sent there, but it wasn't 60 cops. They didn't shut down the park with a fence. And one of the big things that happened there that day was we had a fellow walking through the park who took a hit of some street drugs and was overdosing on fentanyl right there during our protest. As I said, these protests that we've been putting on for the last while are centered around the Cannabis Substitution Program. The speakers speak to the opioid crisis caused by government prohibitions on drugs, including cannabis. And right there was the best, if you will, or worst example of what we're there for, what it is we're trying to solve. A young man clearly overdosing, non-responsive, Rosie O'Rourke, along with a couple others, but primarily Rosie, once an addict herself, now operating the Cannabis Substitution Program in Surrey, jumped into that young man's aid and saved his life. It's on film, it's on camera.
Did you hear the update?
The update is that this is a person that is known to someone in our community, the father of someone who says that although he did come back and thank us that day, he would not stick around for the firemen who were racing to his aid as they were getting closer. He was getting his shit together and getting the hell out of there. Sorry, Annie Barbie, but somewhat appropriate. And he came back a little later to thank us. But I mean, we're told now that he wasn't really happy at the time that he was having the best trip of his life there as he was dying, and didn't like being woken up from it at the time. But
wow. In
any case, so that was.
But he's still around today because he's told us who he was, right?
That girl still has a father, and I'll bet you that he's happy he's alive many times.
Yes. Coming
up, I really hope he can get the help that he needs, and the help that he would probably need is easy access to edibles of a proper dosage that would help him get through the withdrawal and then get to a different life on a completely different path and trek, a journey that doesn't involve all of the trials and tribulations of the use of the misuse of those hard drugs, but in many cases is substituted with cannabis, edibles, concentrates, flower, that makes for a much better, healthier life.
It does.
And we have that reported to us all the time, and we know 100% here that that's the case. So the other thing that was happening around similar times last year in the summer leading up to the fall was court dates. Mm-hmm. We ended up going to court 16 times to finally get some court dates set, which were in October, only to have them moved forward again.
Yep.
And this time the court dates that we're looking at are this coming March on the 26th, 27th, and 28th for a preliminary hearing where hopefully we lose or win, depending on how you look at it. But hopefully the judge allows the case to continue so that we can kick the shit out of Health Canada and their evil, corrupt ways of protecting the rich and abandoning the poor and the helpless and the needy. So anti-Christian, so anti-ethics, so corrupt and wrong. I want my day in court. I want to lay it out on the table. What all of the great evidence that we have of how well what we're doing works for people, how non-harmful it is, how in a public health emergency it has turned out for sure to be the best harm reduction measure that there is. And that is met with force from a corrupt federal agency, government, that is willing to spend $1 million probably just on my case alone. And all of this effort that they've put into trying to stop us from doing what we're doing. This was the year where our 3-year-long application to Health Canada was denied. It took them over 3 years to say that they're denying it. The reasons they gave are obscure and vague at the best. Basically, it comes down to high-dose edibles are dangerous. We can't allow those things for sale to the public. And weed itself is dangerous. It needs to be regulated. We need to irradiate it. We need to have all these pesticides and things in there. Because the weed in the gray market or the green market that isn't through the cartel, oh, that stuff's dangerous. Hell, it could be tainted with fentanyl.
Yeah, sure.
So to protect all your butts out there, because we love you people and we know that we're the government and we're paid to protect all of you, we're going to make it really difficult to get high-dose edibles. And we're going to provide you with cannabis that's been irradiated and pesticided until it's no longer dangerous. And we're going to spend millions of your dollars to criminalize people and ruin their lives if they would dare go against the cartel and grow some plants for their friends and family. This is the world we're living in. This is what's coming up. And I want my day in court. I want my lawyer, who's gung-ho about it as much as I am, to be able to go in there and bring all that evidence out and say, Your Honor, the federal government is killing people. They're resulting in way more deaths. Of those 38,000 people that have died during the overdose crisis, how many of them could have been saved with the easy access, the low barrier access to cannabis edibles, to get them off those drugs in the first place and to replace the use of those things for those, because the vast majority of people who are using those drugs, some of them are just doing it for fun, thinking it looks like a real good time, and they're going to try it, and they've got somebody convincing them they've got a safe supply somewhere. But the vast majority are desperate people who are suffering from serious injury and trauma from childhood and beyond, that are stuck on those things because the government won't allow them to have the option of cannabis. Smoked cannabis isn't enough for almost anybody to get off of those hard drugs, to use smoked cannabis, just the flowers, to deal with the trauma and the pain that they deal with. It's not enough. We knew that 25 years ago as an activist, when we were talking to the activists for the other drugs. And they were like, weed, yeah.
It does work for some
doesn't
people.
do much.
It worked for me.
Yes.
I didn't have...
over the course of time.
I didn't have concentrates back then.
I know.
Right?
And over the course of time, there's been people where just the smoked flower has worked. I'm not saying it can't help people. It does do some good.
Yeah.
But those edibles... Oh, man.
Edibles are way better now.
Edibles are the ticket to the other side of addiction.
Faster way. 1 week. It took me 6 months almost, right?
Basically 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
And people are clear now of what they had. The real serious withdrawals are over.
Doesn't need the fentanyl anymore, right? So it's not demanding it.
It's not demanding it. I mean, withdrawal is horrible. That's the barrier. That's why drugs are addictive.
Nobody wants to
You
go
know,
through
Chris
it.
Beers, I love you, Chris. I don't know if you still watch the show or not. He used to be an avid participant who took me to task all the time to say there is no such thing as addiction. People are just making choices freely, and they want to do this stuff. And they want to blame it on being addicted, and it suits their needs of, whatever that might be. Getting sympathy from other people,
Especially
getting
in courts,
government handouts in courts and the rest
right?
of it.
I have an addiction problem, so they give a lenient on you, right?
And the psychology of it, might be there in some ways to back up what he's saying, except there's withdrawal. And that's where these drugs are not able to be stopped.
Yeah, and one of the pharmaceutical companies do that on purpose. They make sure that withdrawal from these would be hard, so that they don't want the human person to do it. They'll just keep on the drug in order.
It's kind of like your product needs to be sweetened.
Yeah.
So let's put some of that highly addictive sugar in there that'll make it, more people will buy it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that and maybe, and we don't know.
No.
Maybe, but it is the opioids themselves that are the problem because of the way they interact and provide what they provide within the human body. And they would probably do the same in other life forms. But in humans, opioids go in and they bypass certain neural networks. They create their own neural networks that bypass the pain. And every time you use it, those little sub-neural networks are increased and need to be satisfied. And that's where the cravings come, that's where the withdrawal comes, that's where the physical harm comes from not satisfying that network of neurons that is created simply to facilitate that particular type of drug. That's the way the opioids work. And it's not a great explanation. I'm sorry. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm a lay person. I have an overall understanding to some degree that this is the dynamics behind why it is that there's withdrawal. It probably doesn't even matter what the physical science is as to why there is withdrawal. The truth is that there is withdrawal.
Yeah.
And that is the barrier that keeps people using these drugs, that is the definition, in my mind, Chris, of being addicted. That if you can't stop without going through physical torture that forces most people to go back and keep doing it, then that's where that addiction comes.
It's easier to swallow a pill than to go through withdrawal.
Oh man,
Or
I'm
it's
sure.
easier to put a needle in your arm than go through withdrawal, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You do that, and seconds later,
Well, that's what happens.
all your misery is gone.
Yep,
right?
they get to that point where they just can't take it anymore.
That's human behavior wanting that because they're afraid of wanting to go through all that pain and stuff and
100%.
suffering, right? So nobody wants
When
to
the
do
pain
that.
is there.
Nobody wants to put their hand in the saw as it's going by,
That's
right? Sort of thing, right? So,
100%. Well, if your hand's in the saw,
well, I'm just saying, right?
you want
We
to
don't
take it out of
purposely
there.
hurt ourselves. We don't
Maybe,
want to
maybe
hurt
the saw is not the best example, but if there was something extremely painful like a dish of acid, and your hand was being disintegrated in that dish of acid, you would want to pull your hand out. That's the natural reaction.
Yeah,
and when you're in that serious pain from withdrawal, you want to get out of that as quick as you can.
So take it
and
out.
when there's a needle or a pill just down the hallway, just around the corner, just down the lane, just at the other end of a phone,
4 or 5 days of suffering, right?
That's what happens. People can't make it through. You can't blame them.
But
edibles
will help you get through those 4 or
That's
5
right.
days, and they'll make that pain a lot less. You'll sleep,
lot less.
you'll eat, you'll wake up happy. You'll be in like 4 or 5 days. Your body is not going to be screaming for fentanyl anymore.
100%.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we're in court in March.
Nice.
Hopefully that results in us being back in court for the real deal
Master Kush.
in July 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, 30th, and 31st of July, and the 1st of August. All of those dates have been set aside for us to show how corrupt the federal government is, and for them to show whatever it is they got. Now, you know what I learned?
You know what you learned from Jack? You told me, right? Yeah.
So
you made it easy.
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
So I wanted to make it as hard as I could for them to ever prosecute us for what we were doing right from the beginning. And with my experience as an activist, understanding the dynamics of these things to some degree, having been there for the Allard proceedings and lots of other things. I tried to do it right from the beginning, as if it was going to be brought into court. And what would my defense be? Well, my defense would be that we were responding to a public health emergency because we had solid knowledge that we could help rescue people from addiction.
And even the government said we were an essential service. Cannabis was.
Yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, we were, by that time, we'd been doing it for a while, for a couple of years, 3 years, and we were deemed an essential service.
Yep.
We proved ourselves. We more than proved ourselves. But before we started to prove ourselves, I went to the local advocate for the hard drug users, the respected Vancouver area of network drug users. I presented the idea of making it as easy as possible for people to access these edibles to the board, and got unanimous approval. Unanimous approval to work in collaboration with Vandu in the dispensing of these things, and unanimous approval to go to City Council with their backing and ask for their approval and support. And so that's what I did next. I went to City Council. I held up a bag of edibles, clear plastic weed bag.
Was it the
Baggies company.
Was it the monster cookies or whatever?
Michael's cookies would have been in there because he was one of the first to support us. We would have had stuff from a number of different places in the beginning there. Twisted extracts. I don't need to name names.
No.
But
I'm asking for just one.
There was only a half a dozen in there.
Yeah.
And of course, over the course of time, we have had dozens and dozens of people supply us and support us and donate to us. But I held up a bag of these edibles and I showed City Council and I said, this is the real safe supply.
Yeah.
This is what we need to make easily, readily available to people to stop and prevent people from dying of overdose or suffering from overdose. And City Council was not interested. But I did my best. In the 3 or 5 minutes that I was allotted before I had to go back and sit down, I had said my piece and I got no response from City Hall. I then went to the Vancouver Police Board with Rob Laurie, the lawyer, and I presented the same thing to them, along with a plea to them to investigate the federal government for their crimes against Canadians in maintaining the prohibitions and the attempt to prohibit cannabis. On that count, I got told that the jurisdiction of any municipal police force ends several kilometers outside of the city limits. And they don't have the power to be investigating, to use manpower and public dollars to investigate this corrupt federal government that has maintained the attempted prohibition of cannabis for over 100 years and continues today, despite the fact that there's a federal monopoly that's trying to operate as a cartel and using our tax dollars to prevent us from getting access to cheaper, better products. So disgusting. So in any case, we'll be in court against them coming up during that time, and I really want people to come. I want you to come and get a Cannabis Substitution Program hoodie. Yep. We may have by that time hats available for people.
Or maybe some toques.
And maybe some toques. I've got a toque. I'm so honored and thrilled.
It'd be nice if all the CSPs came down to the court time too, right? All of us sitting in there.
So that's where I'm at in our timeline.
Yeah.
Is just recently here, we had celebrations of 4 years of the Halifax East Coast Cannabis Substitution Program operating. 4 years.
Yeah. Still
going strong. They never have missed. They're there. It's cold in Halifax. It's been snowing in Halifax. It is cold. The conditions are not great. They don't have much support from city or government, except that they're allowed to continue doing what they're doing, and they do
4
it.
Years, that's good.
They do it with signs out and all the rest of it for everybody to see. And I'm sure there's other advocacy
groups,
things that are going on in Halifax as a result of that. So 4 years for Halifax and the East Coast CSP. Congratulations, Chris Backer, the fantastic work that he's done there. He's the He's the example. He's the poster boy, in my opinion, of what it takes to operate a CSP. He is resilient, creative, funny as hell, and just not willing to go away. You know, he's relentless. So thank you, Chris.
Yes, thank you, Chris.
We have similar type organizers of the other local ones, and on the same day that we're celebrating the Halifax 4 years, we're celebrating and just had a big gathering in Langley, where there's also a CSP just started up there. We used the Langley headquarters to have a party, a celebration party of the Surrey CSP, marking 1 year of operation. Thank you so much, Rosie Werka, and the people that are working with you, and Dan Heisenherb for Langley there. Incredible work, you people.
Langley needs a spot, remember?
Yeah, and Langley needs a spot to operate in.
Yes.
You know, we're going to revisit Tempe's and see if maybe they'll do that.
Talk to them, right?
I'm going to talk to them. I haven't done that yet. I'm sorry. It's been a busy Christmas season here for me.
Yeah.
And so
but it's good to let people out there know. If you've got a
Yeah.
spot in Langley that the CSP can come and do at least once or twice a week where they can hand out to the homeless, please let us know.
Carol, if you're watching, if you could reach out to the Hempies people and assure them that Randy Kane, beautiful human being, may he rest in peace, would have embraced the CSP there in Langley and likely allowed the use of their back parking lot for a spot, something like that.
Hopefully,
we'll see what happens. And Newton CSP have passed the 6-month mark. They're in the last half of their first year.
Yeah.
Just had to deal with a whole house load of donations. They could hardly move.
Yeah.
They've got the backing of the local church out there.
Yeah.
And wow, congratulations to Bridget and Gary for the work that you're doing, and such passionate advocates for helping out. That's their area.
You got quite the team there.
Gary's been there, done that. Rosie's been there, done that. That's a big part of it. I don't believe Chris has. Chris had a different path to his activism, which was primarily a fire that happened in his home, where he rushed in back and forth into his home to save his animals at the cost of his own skin.
Yeah.
And in using cannabis creams to deal with the burns, which works so well, by the way. I have personal experience with that. I've seen it so many times.
My friend William Barwell, somebody attacked him, and he had a knife cut right across his neck here. I don't know if you've seen pictures or anything.
I didn't.
But he's been using the oil, and it's just healed it up so
It
bad.
is amazing.
Yeah.
And Chris was having amazing illegal success with this, and wanted to be legal, and not being allowed. Ultimately being told by Health Canada that he could use cannabis on his burns, but only in the dried flower form.
Oh, really?
No extracting the cannabinoids and putting it into a topical cream. You've got to rub the flowers on. So he used his illegal cream on the one side of his arm, and the cannabis bud, dried flower, on the other one. Aggravated the crap out of this one, like it was all inflamed and horrible. While this is healing up quite nicely, he proved his point. The Smith case that happened with respect to being able to make extracts as personal growers of cannabis, that has allowed Chris to be able to use cannabis creams. And, you know, he was an activist from that moment on, if not before. I'm not sure. But
my surgeon was totally the opposite. From when I had the burns on my fingers, from when I lost my fingers, he said as soon as it was scabbed up, no problem. Right? If there was fleshy parts and still bleeding, no, he didn't want any cannabis cream in there. But as soon as the scabs were there, he said go for it, and then healed it up really well. Like we were having, it's nice.
I wasn't advised by a doctor really one way or another, but that night in the hospital when they wrapped up my arm, because I had been diverting scalding hot water for over 10 minutes to protect the suites below in an apartment block, where my fault had resulted in scalding hot, high pressure water shooting out of the tub tap, hitting the back wall and going onto the floor. And immediately I grabbed a towel, wrapped it around my arm, and held it to divert the splash of water from going that way and making it go that way. Within no time, that that towel was scalding hot.
Yeah.
My arm was so badly burnt that my skin was just hanging,
Yeah, I've seen
like
that
several
happen.
inches down below it.
Yeah.
We kept it protected. The firemen arrived. I got to hospital. They managed to gently wrap it all.
Yeah.
And then send me home. I unwrapped it all at home. I put on cannabis cream very, very gently, as best I could, making sure not to rip the skin in any way. And by morning, my skin was back tight to my arm.
Wow, yeah.
Still some, pain and burning.
Yeah.
But within a short period of time, I've experienced the miracle.
And did you show the doctors?
No, I don't think I ever did,
No,
back at that time, this was
that would
many,
be amazing
many,
to them,
it
right?
was many, many years ago. I mean, before I was really an activist as such, and I didn't document it the way that I should have, for sure. But for my personal experience, I've seen the miracle of cannabis oil.
Yeah.
And so up next on our year in review is pretty much we've worked our way to the current time here, and the latest Christmas miracle.
Is
the latest Christmas miracle that we never saw coming, and few people believed. I'll bet you nobody put down a bet, and betting is the thing these days.
Yeah.
That the Vancouver Canucks would be first place overall, 2 points ahead of anybody else, going into the Christmas break.
I know, like, right?
Wow!
And it's All-Star.
Wow!
Isn't our All-Star coming up too? Isn't that in
Well, that's got to be a dilemma for the All-Star choosers, doesn't it? We got 4 of our players in the top 15.
Wow.
3 of them are right up there in the top 10, right?
Yeah.
Then there's
but it's conferences that play, right? It's the Wales and the other one that play, right? Like,
well, how are they? You can't have 6 players or 5 players on your team.
No.
One of those top 3 is the defenseman.
Yeah.
Tied with the lead in assists in the entire league. JT Miller is he's a superstar stud of a player. He's got a 200-foot game. He's amazing defensively, shutting down the likes of Conor McGregor and the superstars on the other team. I mean, he's got to be there, doesn't he? Quinn Hughes has to be there, doesn't he? Elias Peterson, oh my God, that guy he's a magician on ice. Defensively, offensively, he's been in the other All-Star. You can't keep him off the team. Brock Besser is not up there in the top 10.
Yeah.
But he's only 2 off of the league lead in scoring goals.
Yeah.
How do you keep him out of the All-Star game?
Yeah.
Now, there's Philip Hronek, who's not in that top echelon, but he's another defenseman for Vancouver who leads all NHL players in 5-on-5 points.
Wow, right?
Wow.
Wow.
But and I haven't mentioned Thatcher Demko.
I know.
Thatcher Demko, the best high danger save percentage, the best save percentage, and he's on line to win the Vezina Trophy.
Yeah.
How do you keep him out of the All-Star game? So there's a real dilemma.
Yeah.
6 players on the Canucks that really should be.
The conference is bigger than the division, and they do it by conferences, right? It's the one conference faces the other conference.
I don't know how they're doing it this year.
Yeah, well, that's usually
They've changed so many times.
They changed it. I'm old
Not
school.
the conference thing. They haven't changed recently, but I don't know. I haven't seen.
I've noticed it used to
I
be
would
4
imagine
on 4 for overtime. Now it's 3-on-3.
3-on-3. Yeah. Well,
Right?
for the whole games now, it's 3-on-3. I think.
Is it?
I think so.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean for all the games?
Well, the games that the All-Star teams play against the other divisions within the conference and against the conference
Are going to be
are
3-on-3?
3-on-3, I
Oh,
believe.
really? They won't play a
They
full
use
5-on-5
the overtime
against
format.
Wales against the other.
Not 5-on-5. Not last year.
No, eh?
I don't know this year.
I don't
We'll
watch
see.
the All-Star, so
So
they
yeah,
really changed that, eh?
Oh, last year was crazy.
I think
the
fastest
real
skater and the hardest shot still, right?
they gave in last year. The NHL people that prepare the All-Star game, they gave in to the TV folks, and it was a made-for-TV event. And I personally don't think it went very well.
Yeah.
I liked the more traditional formats that they've had in the past. We'll see what they do this year.
Yeah.
But how they're going to have any of those 6 Canucks left off that All-Star team, I don't know how they're going to do it. But
they'll do it.
They can't have. They will.
They will. They'll
They
do it.
will.
We don't know how they're going to do it, but they'll probably.
I think Philippe Rodick is just going to have to be the best 5-on-5 producer and not be on the All-Star team. I think probably even Brock Besser.
Okay.
Because you got to have Thatcher Demko there. You got to have Quinn Hughes and JT Miller there.
As the coach for the.
Yeah, does he get that, or is there?
I don't know. You would know. Do they take a coach to do?
Well, it's the coach who's leading.
Yeah.
Going into some break, but I don't think it's the Christmas break, but it might be.
Really? Eh?
It might be.
Yeah, because he would be he's the number one team.
He'd be the guy, so we would have the coach.
Right, so we would have a coach.
And then he could pull strings and get the other 5 guys there. 6 guys.
He pulls sticks. There's no strings in the
But the Vancouver Canucks, leading the NHL in points, leading the NHL in goals, leading the NHL by a vast margin of goal differential.
Yep.
And all of these players up for awards. Quinn Hughes is leading the voting right now, but the voting doesn't happen until the end of the year. But he's the guy that will take the Norris.
The end of the year is Sunday.
Well, but not the end of the season.
Oh, you said the end of the year.
I know, but not the hockey year.
Oh, no, but...
The end of the hockey year. The hockey year is only half.
I think it's the end of the year because the All-Star game is in January.
It is. So
right?
It might be
right after the Christmas break.
It could be that this is
right?
the place where they cut it off, and the coach is leading right now, which would probably be the Rangers from that conference and Rick Tocchet from ours.
Yeah.
The Rangers, I mean, we're honest people here. We're giving credit where credit is due.
This is the truth, hope, and
I like to tell the truth, and even if the truth hurts, although I don't tell you all the truths about the legal marketplace, because I'm not blowing their horn at any point in time until they stop advocating for not having Indigenous people control their cannabis rights, not having poor people have proper access through low barrier. So there are times when I read that there's been an increase in sales or something for the legal marketplace. And I did just talk a little bit earlier in the show about the slight increase that they've had. But other than that, I like to tell the truth, especially if we're trying to talk about, something like this where, the truth is that if you look at it from the point of percentage, the New York Rangers are leading the NHL at the Christmas break because they've played 3 less games than Vancouver, and they're 2 points behind Vancouver.
Okay.
So they're averaging a little over a point a game. With 3 games, that's over 3 points. They're 2 points behind the Canucks, so they would get it. But not the Bruins. And not the Golden Knights.
No, not Vegas or anywhere.
Just the New York Rangers have that slight edge if you look at it that way.
Even though Winnipeg is doing very well.
Winnipeg is doing well.
Yes, they are.
Toronto, I know they can't possibly do well in the playoffs for more than a couple of rounds. But, they've got a good team there. They've got Matthews, who's actually leading the league in goals. They got some goaltending issues. 9-5 the other night against Buffalo they lost.
There's a joke about Toronto that when the Toronto Maple Leafs fan's wife is wearing her shirt that night, he's not going to score.
They're not the lowest scoring team in the league.
No, but
they're just a team that can't seem to get the playoff thing right. I wish them well, but not before the Canucks. The Canucks deserve it first. Nobody deserves it more than the Canucks.
Dave Seashore goes, "Let's go Rangers!"
Yeah, well, Rangers and Canucks for the rematch.
That's it. Yeah.
2024, 1994, all over again.
All right, Dave. We'll see.
30 years later, Canucks get their revenge.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. JT Miller with his skate on the throat of your captain.
Isn't our last captain a Ranger now? Or is he an Islander?
Well, Bo Horvat is an Islander.
He's an Islander, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, wow. That would have been nice if the Ranger would beat him and show
we
that
could
Vancouver...
still end up against the Islanders.
Yeah, and show that Vancouver gets a cup while he's not there.
You know what? I'm way ahead of myself, and I'm really deviating from my own truth. My own truth is that I don't believe the Vancouver Canucks are going to win the Stanley Cup. I can't force myself to believe that. I refuse to be hurt like that again.
Yeah.
It's going to be
doing good.
It's been their greatest year ever so far. I believe that's going to continue. Some people think it's going to fall off now. We'll see how that goes. But I don't think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. You won't convince me of it unless they're up by at least 3 goals with like less than a minute to go. The other day, Philadelphia, I think it was, down 2 goals with 15 seconds to go.
And they beat 'em.
No, they were down a goal. Were they down only a goal? I think they were down a goal with 15 seconds to go, and they scored 2 goals in those 15 seconds and won it in regulation.
Wow.
Wow. See, that's the kind of thing that would happen to Vancouver, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, even if they're up 3 goals with a minute to go. So with less than a minute to go, 3 goals, no less.
3 games won.
No less than 3 goals up. I will start to cry.
So, we'll see if Neil cries.
Hockey is the greatest game on the planet.
This summer, it'll be July or something, right?
You know, there's good aspects of baseball, and there's good aspects of football, and even basketball.
Sports is good.
Sports, you know, obviously professional sports games that have been created, that have moved to the professional level, have great aspects to them. Great athletes doing them, but there is no game like hockey.
There's a new one now. And I just saw it today, and it's in the States. It's called bowling.
Bowling.
So you take a football and you throw it
at bowling pins.
Yes. So yes, but if there's a red bowling pin in the middle and you knock that down, the first time you get to go over to this thing and let the horn go and stuff like that. So it's called bowling.
And they'll have cheerleaders, and there'll be coaches, and there'll be athletic trainers.
Leagues, but it's done in the warehouse and stuff like that.
But I'm telling you, just by your explanation or definition or description, doesn't hold a candle to hockey.
Well, they're saying it's going to be like pickleball.
Yeah, well,
How pickleball caught on.
Pickleball's also, it's for old people. Pickleball is for old people.
Bowling's good for old people too, then.
If you're not a hockey fan and you don't believe what I'm saying, just tune in over the next week to the Under 18 Junior World Hockey Championships.
Yep.
And just watch the skill levels of those guys. Or watch the Vancouver Canucks. Because they are fun to watch. And if you can get up close and see what it is that those guys are doing on the ice,
even
they
the
are in. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Well, hockey in general. That's what I'm saying. My premise is, let's have it on the CBC debaters. Hockey is by far the greatest game on earth throughout history. Maybe the naked Greeks in the Olympics. No. Might have been funner to watch, but nope. Hockey is incredible. The speed at which that game is played, that frozen rubber puck traveling at 100 miles an hour off the sticks of these guys. Oh my God!
You think it's more exciting than bullfighting?
I think it's a greater game.
That's 1,000 pounds coming at you. No, you got this little thing.
I'm sure watching people come close to death is exciting.
Right.
I mean, you can get a bigger audience. You can get more interest because there's death involved.
Yeah.
Auto racing.
Scoring.
Auto racing is amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible athletes. That's a great sport. People watch it because they're hoping there's going to be a serious accident and somebody will walk away from death. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, some people don't walk away from death.
Speedboat racing, same thing.
Remember Greg Moore?
Yep.
I've never seen that crash. I've never seen that crash.
You never seen it?
I was a huge fan of Greg Moore.
You never saw it.
I didn't see it live, and I refused to see it after.
Oh, wow.
I did not want to see that.
Yeah.
So, that's horrible.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in hockey, although some horrible things have happened in hockey.
Yep, just like the knife, the throat thing that happened in England just a little while ago.
Clint Malarchuk getting his throat cut, the young man recently. There's been some horrible things happen in hockey.
Lots of things can happen.
But all that means is that that's still that element of greatness that games have, is there's risk of even death in hockey, although heaven forbid that ever happens. It's not designed to happen that way.
Often, yes.
It sure doesn't.
It can.
I mean, they allow fist fighting, which has gotten really hard to do because those helmets are hard to hit.
Yes, I know, and the face mask too.
Yeah, because they all have face masks.
Yeah, here, I'm going to just punch your face.
Here, let me take your helmet. Let me take your helmet off. All right, away you go. And then when you're punching bare-fisted into a guy's forehead, you can kill him.
Yeah,
can't happen. So, but fighting is still there. There's so much passion in the game. The referees are having a hard time. They've doubled the referees over the last couple of decades now. There's 2 of them out there. They still don't catch everything because hockey players are tricky.
Yeah.
And they will get you when the referee isn't looking. And when they do, your other teammates will come to your aid and somebody's going to fight their tough guy or fight that guy or hit their superstar or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get sorted out if the refs don't do it, and the refs can't do it. So there's some fighting in hockey. It's a bit barbaric. I don't know what I think of it. I think it has to be there. Everybody's up on... Here's the thing with fighting in hockey. If you ask the people in the arena whether they're in favor of fighting in hockey, most of them will say no, they're not.
Really?
Yeah, because they got little kids, or the wife doesn't like it, or if you want to see boxing, you can go watch boxing. Yeah. But when the fight happens on ice, they're all up out of their seats. They're all cheering. They're all very, very excited about it. So, I mean, that's kind of the dilemma of the National Hockey League.
And that could be just monkey see, monkey do. Everybody else is getting excited, so everybody else gets excited. And
I think fights are exciting too,
Yeah.
Anyway, the greatest game on earth.
Even from school age. At school, we see fights and we form a circle around the fight and watch the fight, right? So,
I was in the middle of those people watching it sometimes.
Yeah.
I had to do a lot of fighting in school.
It's probably a behavior that we've developed.
And as we witnessed during the Stanley Cup riots,
the Romans did it
that,
first.
Once those people are gathered into a mob, there's that mob mentality that takes over, and those people are egging the people on.
Yeah.
And in the case of the Stanley Cup riots, it wasn't a fight, but I've seen that same dynamic happen in fights. There gets to be that lust for blood, that lust for violence.
And maybe it's all drawing from the Colosseum days, where they're fighting each other, gladiators and stuff like that.
I talked off the top of the show about how our reactions to things are much more than we think they are, driven by the reactions of our ancestors from way back.
Yeah.
These things are genetically programmed into us, what excites us, what interests us. And so I guess you can't fault the average human being for wanting to see a hockey fight or even to see a horrible crash.
But we don't want to see our
during an auto race.
We don't want to see our parents fight and stuff like that.
Sure.
Or other people fighting and hurting other people. So
you detach yourself.
It's strange that we accepted it.
What the Romans and the Greeks did continues on today in the boxing and the wrestling ranks.
Yes, but even boxing's not out there as much as Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and the boxing that we had back in the 70s.
MMA takes a lot of that now.
Yeah.
It still is a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, they got people watching.
Vegas, yes.
Vegas would sell out whatever venue they're going to put a major MMA fight or a regular fight in.
Yeah.
But the real seller is people buying it on their TV.
Yeah.
And gathering friends in their houses and watching it on pay-per-view. It's millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
We still have those instincts within us. That lust for blood and lust for violence is from way back in our past. These are things made in war.
Yeah.
War is when your family is threatened with annihilation, and soldiers go and fight the enemy on your behalf.
Yeah.
So you're damn right you're cheering for your side to win.
Yeah.
It gets more civilized. Although I'm not sure it was that way with the Greeks and the Romans, but it gets more civilized when you can condense it down about, well, we'll put one guy up against your guy and we'll fight it out to the death.
Yeah.
And then that got more civilized. It was like, all right, those guys
they're dying.
that select from each side, well, they don't have to die. They can just give up.
You go, Tom.
Okay, we'll get a little more civilized. They don't have to give up. We'll have a referee there, and if he thinks they're close to death, he can call the fight.
Yeah.
And so we've gotten more and more civilized
now
about
you tap out. In MMA, you tap out.
But if you don't tap out, the referee can stop it.
Oh, yeah, the referee can still stop it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. Yeah.
So more and more civilized.
Yeah.
Not fight to the death, not armies against each other. Single combatants who choose to be there now. They're not chosen by the sides anymore. They get to choose to be there. They get paid millions of dollars for doing it.
I wouldn't say that the MMA is more civilized now fighting than boxing, because with the MMA you can kick somebody's drop kick them and stuff. In boxing, when you weren't allowed to do that, it was just the fist in the body, right?
I agree.
So you're allowed more violence today to the body in that realm of in a ring than the square ring.
Absolutely,
right?
I agree with that.
Yeah, because you can do a lot more damage to somebody kicking the motherfuckers out of the head.
You look at some of the faces of some of those people that Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson,
ears and stuff
and
like that.
the beat up noses and, the scarred faces.
Still doing the same thing.
So there's that similar level of violence. Yeah, you don't kick the guy in the balls.
No.
But they wear cups, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
still, if that cup hits you in that spot, it fucking still hurts. Maybe not as bad as if the cup wasn't there.
And that hand sheathed in the glove hits you in the noggin, and that can knock you right out too.
Yeah.
That can cut your face, you know.
Or your eye.
So, the violence is there,
but
it's civilized to the point where you can tap out, or the referee's going to call the fight, or you can get knocked out, and that's the end of the fight, you know. Whatever. But those instincts are what's still there.
Hurt, and that's the end of the fight.
So the instincts are still there. I think hockey is the greatest game for, one country against another country, fighting it out on the ice there. And there's a little bit of fisticuffs that happens as well, but the referees are right there to break that up as well. And so...
But they don't always bring it... When do they break it up? The refs break it up when helmets come off? Or is that when the player goes down on the ice?
No, it's up to the discretion of the ref.
Is it? I thought they wait for the guy to go down on the ice.
If they think one guy's getting it too bad, they'll break it up at that time. Right. If they think it's all locked up and there's not much going on there, they'll move in and start tearing arms off and shit. Yeah. It's up to the discretion of the ref. Right. But the point is that we are making our decisions about what we like and don't like and how we react and don't react based on a lot of instincts that come from our genetics and passed down through millennia. And, we need to understand those things to understand ourselves and then make decisions about, how we're going to be. Dexter, an amazing human being that works for us here at the CSP now for well over a year, he was saying the other day that he's been on that journey, as was I, as are many, as I recommend, that you go on that journey of understanding yourself and what your likes are, what your habits are, what your instincts are, and deciding consciously with ethics, is this how I want to be? Yeah. Is this bringing me happiness? Is this the person that I want to put out there the face of for other people to either respect or not respect? And he says, he's what's the word, renovated his personality several times over the years in deciding that some things were right and working for him and some things weren't,
Well, I think we all do that, right?
Yeah. And I guess the Vancouver Canucks have done that, and they threw out the old management, and they brought in Rutherford and Patrick Albine, and they brought in a coach with some structure. No slight against the previous non-structured coaches, But yeah, we're doing good, and that's how I want to end this year in review, is with hope. Because hope is the middle name of the show. And hope is so important for everybody. And as a Vancouver Canucks fan, it's been difficult over the over 50 years to have hope. But there's evidence now that there's reason for hope.
Yeah, there's truth in your
hope. And for all the people that are struggling out there, for all the people that have problems that seem insurmountable, time heals most things. There's only two types of things, those that you can and can change and those you can't. Some things just are what they are. It is what it is. You just have to live with it. But you can make the best of it. You can look on the right side of it. You can still find some joy and happiness and positivity. Maybe it's just that this will be the example to guide you through the rest of your life of how bad it can get. And you'll know it'll never get that bad because you'll never let it get that bad, because you'll see what it is that brought it to that, and you can make those changes. And that was the cost of this time right now that seems overwhelming and insurmountably bad. Time can heal most things, but a shift in perception can also heal things, and that's required. And so I hope that for the new year coming up, I won't see you now until next year, that you can take some little nugget of something out of what's been presented to you on our Plot TV shows over the year, and today's episode and all the rest before it, and some good comes out of it, because that is my hope. And without hope, you have nothing. You have no reason to move forward. There would be no reason to do this show. There would be no reason for you to continue to face the overwhelming and seemingly insurmountable. But hope is there. Hope for a better future. Hope for a better way to look at the future. Hope for whatever it is that you're concerned about. Hang on to hope, and it'll allow you to make moves, to do things, to affect change. Change can happen if you maintain hope. There you go.
All right, I'm out
I
of
think
here
we're done for the bulk of
for
the
this
show.
year. Oh, yeah?
Well, do we want to go and say goodbye to the RV?
You want to go up there?
I do want to go.
Okay, well,
are we able to do that?
Well, I'll have to change the Wi-Fi because there will be no signal up there. So
Right.
we'll be able to.
So you need a few minutes?
No. Just there may be a freeze on their feed here as we change over. All right.
All right. So I can still do a
You
little
can,
bit of a.
you can still go and
little
do
bit of
that.
a-
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We'll see you next year, January 2nd.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
It's been a pleasure, Glenn. You're an amazing producer. You're an amazing human being.
You're an amusing
Who
sir.
can do all those things that I can't do, that I'm an imbecile at. And
imbecile.
together we make a pretty good team. And I've really enjoyed having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I don't allow you the input that probably you should get,
Oh, I get lots of
but
input.
you allow me the input that I feel like I need to have here. So thank you so much for your patience with me, and all the rest of it. You're quite a fellow, and you deserve
Thank you,
to
sir.
be Sir Glenn Wells.
Sir Magnuson.
All right. It's been about the CSP for the whole show. For in our 5th year now, we're I don't know, 4 months into our 5th year of doing this Pot TV show that I didn't think I wanted to do. I didn't think I could do, and I thought I'd get better at it as we move along, and maybe I have, but it hasn't gotten any more comfortable for me. It's a drain on my energy. I don't get energized. I can't see all you people, and I don't really get any feedback like that, and it's just me yapping into a few little black holes on the back of Glenn's phone here. But I hope that there's people out there. I believe that there are. The truth is that we find out that there are by the feedback that we get, and I hope that our show has educated people about what we're doing here. And that's what the show's been about since the beginning. The theme that's run clear through all 220 some episodes is this struggle against very powerful forces to allow for freedom for human beings to be able to make choices for themselves that aren't coerced and threatened into being by corrupt government forces that would like to satisfy the greed of those corporate entities that control our governments here in the so-called free first world. This show has turned out to be about a citizen's initiative with truth and hope, moving forward against the law and demonstrating successfully for almost 7 years that the government is corrupt. What we've really been trying to demonstrate is simply that cannabis is medicine for people. Cannabis is profoundly beneficial for people that are trying to escape the withdrawal barrier of using those other harsher substances. That's what we're trying to prove here. That's what we have proven. That's what we're demonstrating. But it turns out what we're really exposing is just how corrupt this beloved country of ours really is. Our government has been taken over by international, corporate, financially elite groups that have enslaved the population to be producers and consumers for their benefit. Within all of that, we can still live a relatively decent life compared to some of the other oppressive regimes throughout history and around the world, but it's not good enough. In fact, it's still horrible, because even though you and I and most of the average people have access to a pretty good life here, comparatively to those people that we're talking about that are oppressed by really restrictive governments, tyrants, kings, dictators, people ruling through military takeover with religious idealism and forcing people into their idealism and whatever it is they want to force people into. We thought we had it better here in Canada. I thought we had it better here in Canada. It's an illusion. Because just because you and I can etch out a decent life amongst the corruption, those that are least able to are having a hell of a time. All of those families that are on the verge of poverty are losing their homes. They're losing their ability to properly look after their families. They're having to choose over rent or food, over medicine or other staples. Doesn't need to be this way. It shouldn't be this way. We understand how it got to be this way. Corporate greed and sophistication up against public apathy and ignorance. We can do better. We can stop being ignorant and closing our eyes and turning our heads away from the corruption that is obviously running this country. And we can move away from the apathy that prevents us from doing something about it because we don't think we can make a difference. Everyone can make a difference. Anyone can make a difference. One person can make a difference. Likely one person can't solve all of this. Likely that's going to take almost all of us, or at least a large chunk of us. Some people have more important things to do, like raising their families and trying to survive in an economy that is fighting against them. And they don't have much time to put into doing anything to help make it better. But many of us do. And we can find the time, and we can find the ways. And we need to take this stuff seriously. We need to be part of the solution for the future, or the future is bleak. The future is security, cameras all over the place, government rules and laws that harm the poor and the suffering, the desperate and the struggling. Stay out of trouble. Do our jobs, make our money, pay our fees, pay our fines, pay our bills, pay the high price of living, and survive it all. But that's not good enough. And nobody should feel like that's enough. Everybody should feel like their brothers and sisters, their family members are struggling and suffering. And until all of us are okay, none of us are okay. So I put it on you. Do the right thing. Embrace the possibility of change, the hope that we can make things better, and put some thought into how you can be part of solving that. It's easy enough to do small things. You don't have to be the most creative person in the world. You don't have to be the most articulate person in the world. But it's easy enough to put a few words on a piece of paper or into an email and send it along. It's not that hard to be educated about this stuff and not oblivious to it, and be willing to discuss it a little bit with the people that you trust or the people that are able to influence change. A phone call here, a call into an open line show there, a comment onto a media thread in a newspaper here or there, a letter to the editor. All of these things can be done, and a lot more. I highly recommend, and I'm begging you, do something. Become part of us. Join the movement. And you'll find a level of peace involved there that differs from how you feel about being unable to do anything. Doing something gives a person a real sense of helping. And if you're helping somebody else, you're in the best position. You're not the person needing help. You're the person who can help. You're lucky. You are blessed. You owe it to your good fortune to give back. Find simple, easy ways to give back and enrich your life. Spread joy to others to experience it for yourself. Anyway, there you go. It's been longer than I wanted, but you know there's things to say. We're going to go outside.
Okay, we switched over, so we're good.
All right.
I'll turn my light on for you.
All right. That's
there you go.
Good for me, bad for the viewers.
Now you won't trip over things, or trip over less.
Well, and last week I didn't do the weekly THC weather report, but here we are, back on track.
Yeah.
It's a nice night. It's a little crispy, but it's dry. It's not too cold. And there's a bunch of fairly well-fed people that otherwise wouldn't.
People are going to notice that we're going for a little bit more of a walk now.
Yeah, we got booted out of the other spot. I think I covered that in last week's show.
What about this spot?
And then we had the spot in front of the store there. But then, you know, our neighbor, well, you can't see it, but he's got the 8-foot door there. And the tent didn't work on rainy days with the tent.
Yeah.
And there was some extra litter around his place there and what have you. So
he asked you move?
We agreed we would move it up the street.
And now we're all the way up in the corner.
And this is where we started our journey in the RV.
Yeah.
3 years ago, November 1st.
Yeah.
So on November 1st, 3 years ago, we were evicted from the store because the federal government wouldn't give us a license in a timely fashion like they said they would. And we bought an RV and never missed a day. And we've been in the RV. This is the third iteration of these RVs ever since. And this is the spot we were in first. But the anti-vending unit came and made us move. And then we ended up down there. And da-da-da,
now we're in the corner.
Where I felt was the best place to begin with.
Yeah.
Far enough removed from what was the store to give us a little bit of separation there, although that's now not something to worry about anymore. I'm sure anybody paying attention knows where our headquarters is in the
now I know, yeah.
But we're right on Main Street. The police station is right there. The courthouse is right there. A lot of traffic coming up Cordova. A lot of traffic on Main Street. We've got our signs out to let people know what's going on. At different times as events happen, we put out other signs to educate people about what's going on. And we'll see how long we're here for.
We've been here for years already.
This is our 4th winter in the RV. You know, we're better than we were before. We got proper heaters now. We got proper lights now. We got a crew that's hardened. So,
yeah, okay. I was just trying to clean up the van back here. So.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we come so you guys can say Happy New Year to everybody.
I don't celebrate New Year. Happy New Year.
That's really offensive.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be the old year for Dexter next year.
Thank you. Happy old year.
Yeah, we do clean it up for house guests, and once a week we have house guests. This is our home, really, where we spend, a couple, 3 people here, 8 hours every day, a little more than that with the setup and takedown. And so, this gets to be like a home for people here, and we clean it up a little bit every Tuesday just for appearance's sake. Not that it's really necessary.
Nonsense. I'm always cleaning this thing.
It's an ongoing, like everybody's home.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing car.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing battle against clutter and mess and all the things because you're doing stuff. If they just came in here, they sat down there, smoked joints, and chatted all day, there wouldn't be big messes to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this is an ongoing operation of providing a whole bunch of different cannabinoids in the different forms because people have different needs as to how they use these things. We really have to meet people where they are. That's the way it works, is that you can't force people into a particular, here, you're going to only use this particular type of cannabis because that's all we're going to make available to you. It doesn't work for a lot of people. They have their own reasons and own ways, and what works for them doesn't work for other people. We need to respond to the needs of the neighborhood, to the needs of the people in the neighborhood with what they present to us. And so there's an ongoing effort to have the right concentrates, to have the right edibles, to have the right flower, to have all of that stuff. We've covered a lot today, but there's a lot to cover.
Yep. And we got a whole new year to do that.
We covered the the desperate need for medical users of cannabis to have edible products, and how
a magical
that's what
cleanse,
works
sir.
where the smoked cannabis doesn't.
God bless.
One point I want to make as we close up today's show is that we're in court coming up, as we talked about.
Looking good.
We're in court for selling cannabis. They might have left us alone if all we did was give it away, but we needed to be able to pay the rent on the store when the city said we could move into a store. We then needed to be able to buy the RV. There needs to be remuneration for the people that are working 8 hours a day. And so we started to sell cannabis, not with the CSP, but in a collaboration with the Healing Wave. And so cannabis is available for sale. I've never had to hide that, or never tried to hide that. We started earlier in the show to explain how I did everything up front. I did everything without hiding. I did everything trying to do it the right way. And what that has meant is that, yes, I've handed a pretty good case to our lawyer to convince a judge on compassionate grounds to rule in our favor, whatever that will be. But on the other side of it, I gave a slam dunk case to the federal crown to be able to prove that we are selling cannabis and we have not been issued a license yet. So we'll see how that goes in court. They basically don't have to prove any more than I've been saying that I'm doing since the beginning. But the reason that the thing that happened when we started selling it is it became very clear that there was a different population of people that required access, that were not going to come and get it for free, were not going to join a program, were not going to identify themselves as having this issue. They needed discreet, low barrier access. Extremely important that they be able to have access, because those people are the ones that are dying throughout the rest of society that nobody suspected, because they're secret addicts. And they need to know that cannabis edibles can help them through withdrawal, and they need to have easy, discreet, low barrier access to sell to cannabis for sale, because they're not going to come and get it for free and identify themselves as I said. So we're righteous in what we're doing here. We know we are doing the right thing. We know that it would be extremely unethical to stop helping the people who have come to rely on us. And that's our defense in court, and we really hope it flies. Any last words from you guys? Last show of the year. How do you feel about things? What's going on? What are your hopes?
Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Yeah, we're having a great Kwanzaa.
Christmas may be over, but Festivus lives on throughout the year.
Oh, yeah.
Festivus, Kwanzaa, Boxing Day to a lesser extent.
I don't see any boxes in here, so there's no Boxing Day today.
No,
There's
I
a
know.
box right beside it.
Yeah.
I'm a boxer.
Well, there we go.
Oh,
the dog?
there my light went off for some reason. I don't wonder why.
Oh, jeez.
We do the best we can
sir.
here to try to
Nice.
enjoy our time and make it as lighthearted as
Kwanzaa,
possible.
good man.
Humor is so important around here. Being able to deal with the misery that we're exposed to and people tell us about all the time is difficult.
Right?
So that's why we try to maintain the lighthearted attitude that we have here. It's important that we laugh at things and let things slide off of us. And it's important that you do that too. Whatever it is that you're doing in life, whatever problems that you have some hope that they can be solved. Don't give up hope. Don't be pessimistic. Be optimistic. Use the foundations of optimism and happiness that I said right off the top of the show, if they can work for you, or whatever works for you. But a positive attitude can lead to positive feelings and positive results. And a negative attitude has the opposite effect. So as you go through life, spread joy to others, because that's the way to experience it yourself. Feel lucky that you're lucky enough to be somebody that has the ability to help, as opposed to being somebody who needs the help. Be kind to others, especially those that are most difficult to be kind to. They're the ones that need it the most. Those are the ones that will enrich your soul the most. Life is tough. Life is serious, way too serious to take too serious. Go about your life, taking things easy, letting things slide, and most importantly, you know it. Have as much fun as you can till I see you next year.
Cheers.